Afternoon. My name is Sam Hayes, and this is Why with One Stop. Wrong signer, wrong story. Verifying authorized signers before executing contracts. I don't know about you, but being in Southern California with so many properties that are over the threshold of when people have financial trust, we have a lot of probates, LLCs, corporations owning things. We have a lot of entity signers. And so with that, you need to make sure we know exactly who's supposed to be signing at what time. A little bit about me. I have been doing this for over 23 years this month. I've assisted with 7,500 transactions. I have, at this point, gotten every bit of alphabet soup behind my name. Certified transaction coordinator, forms trainer, zip forms trainer, NAR short sale foreclosure resource. They are certified probate specialist, and I recently became a CATC accredited TC. That's California Association of Transaction Coordinators. We are getting together because we want to make sure we're the best in the country, as well as want to help educate others. So all those fun things together to say, basically, I'm a big car forms nerd, and I'm excited to share this all with you. My mission statement, a little bit about my business. My mission is to serve as a frontline risk management specialist for independent brokers and agents. I build defendable, compliant, and well-documented transaction files that align with DRE, broker, and statutory requirements, while always recognizing that the ultimate responsibility rests with the broker. Through One Stop TC, I reduce the administrative friction, protect transaction integrity, and restore time and mental bandwidth to the brokers and agents that I work with. I let you guys go do what you like to do, which is business gen, leadership, and growth. I get to do what I like to do, stay home, yell at people, and scream at screens and look at paperwork. And as always, I'm going to tell you over and over again, verify all with the broker of record of the file you're working on. So now that you know all the little bits of why I think I have enough info to share with you today, I'm going to try and make your life easier. I want to break down why this whole thing is a big deal about having entity signers. Setting us up for success starts with the first signature. And the first signature, let's get it right. A lot of times things are signed in the name of the individual versus the entity. We don't have their correct signature block. When we have POAs, DocuSign decides to sign everything in the name of the trust, all that fun stuff. So the whole reason I'm doing this is when you start off with your RLA, your BRBC, your RPA, for those who don't know, that's your listing agreement, buyer broker agreement, or your purchase contract. You got signed by the wrong person. We don't have a valid contract. That can mess with your deal being accepted or enforceable, the liability of the broker and the risk, the wrong dates. It defines the contract as invalid. Who is allowed to sign for what? Basically, it messes up your whole file. So let's start from the beginning with correct information. Take a few minutes, make sure when you were meeting with a client, let's get everything possible from the get-go, have title eyeball it, before we're under escrow, before we're under crunches, before we're down to a deed of trust needing to be recorded and it's signed incorrectly. And we have to find somebody else to sign all these things and we have to redo the whole file. No, let's not do that. Instead, let me walk you through this. I'm going to explain why and how this is actually a very easy thing to do and very easy to get set up. So this all starts with when you take your listing or have a buyer broker agreement. With all the changes in the past few years in California real estate, as we all know, there are now 3 contracts. We have our listing agreement, seller to the listing agent. We have our buyer side agreement, our buyer representation. That's the buyer to the buyer's agent. And then the buyer and the seller come together in their own contract and they do the purchase, be it on vacant land, residential income, pick your flavor. Every single one of these 3 contracts has this same thing. Within 3 days of acceptance, the party that is signing on behalf of the entity is to provide to either the broker on the listing agent, or excuse me, the listing agreement, or your buyer broker agreement, which are listed both here, RLA 22 or BRBC 13. That's so the broker, during the 5 days that they have to review if they are going to agree to move forward with these contracts, why you have to turn them in to your brokers. Everybody's like, you didn't turn it in 48 hours. You didn't do this. There's a reason. It's for liability and brokerage oversight. Broker is supposed to review all of these documents prior to the start of a contract because they have the ultimate say. Brokers are ultimately responsible. So these docs should be in your file within 3 days. That's a huge deal. It happens all the time where I have agents who never have looked at or received the documents showing the signing authority. And then we get into trouble down the line, and then questions are asked from the other side. Because as we'll get into on the next page, when you have a contract, the entity signing on behalf, or excuse me, the party signing on behalf of the entity. So that's, hi, I have my trust. Hi, I'm a letter administrator. Hi, I've got a power of attorney. That's me, individual, is to provide it to the other party, be it buyer or seller, and escrow. It's not escrow's responsibility to be providing these documents. And I'll show you a little bit later on, the certification of trust that escrow gets done really might not cover you. And I've had problems where I'm going to share a little bit of a stories from behind the curtain of how some things went wrong when we trusted that versus getting the actual documents from the created entities. So 3 days, this is everything. Everybody, 3 days, your RLA, your RPA, your BRBC. I need to see those entity docs. I need to see proof of signing authority. I don't need the whole thing. I don't want your whole trust. I don't want all the things. I just want to know who's allowed to sign. Same thing, this is in the contract. And I cite this a lot because I'll get an RCSD sent over, a representative capacity signature disclosure, but I have no supporting documentation that they have that person is signing authority. And when I circle back and share this, I get challenged a lot because we're like, I don't have to give that to you. You don't have the right to have that. It's not your permission. It is totally created inside of each of these entity documents, a document within the document that proves signing authority. It is very commonplace. It's very known. It's not a big deal. Again, it's not giving me anything other than the basics of that entity document and who's got signing authority for it. Plus, we always are going to run those through title and escrow because they're going to need to verify that everything's legit and up and running right now. As we'll get into when I go into the specifics of each of the different ones, probate, trust, LLC, there are different requirements and different forms and different documents. And the more you are familiar with it, the more comfortable you'll be when you're asking for what you need from your clients. So again, 3 days. I need those docs, 3 days. And don't tell me when I'm on the buy side that I didn't have we never asked for those, ask escrow. You were supposed to have them within 3 days. Same thing on the listing side. Hey, buyer, where's your entity docs? Oh, we don't have this. You were supposed to have them. So that's one of the things to remember is you're already handing over saying you're not following your contracts that you've agreed to. It creates a gray area. It doesn't have to happen. Go ahead, just ask for the entity documents. That's why they exist. So a lot of times when we have these, you're signing with an entity, everybody forgets this part. Now it's 3 forms, but then we also have, if you have an entity buyer signing or an entity seller signing, every single one of them, it's the same. It's totally the same. All you're going to do is say you have an entity signer. We know that. We need the full name of the entity. That's going to be the name of the trust, the probate, the case number, which will be on your letter of administration. I need the name of the LLC. I need the name of the corporation. I need the name of the bank. I need the power of attorney. Who's doing this? What are we doing? Every single one of them. I need to know. Then I need to know who's legally authorized, who's allowed to do this. And I need to have those names because a lot of times you can't read somebody signing on DocuSign, something along those lines. Then they'll sign below. If you complete these sections on both your offer and also in your BRBC, your listing agreement, you don't have to do the extra step of the RCSD. That shortens some of your paperwork right here by just doing it correctly from the get-go. So take the time to make sure that you are filling these out when you have entity signers. It's really a big deal. I know we're racing through DocuSign. I understand you might be on your phone. It's really hard to do. Take a few minutes to talk to somebody who might be able to look at it. Maybe you work with somebody who has access. Maybe you have an assistant, a TC, something along those lines who can eyeball it, let's get all the forms correct. But otherwise, we got to go back in and add the RCSD, which is extra steps and just more documentation when it can all be handled if we take our time from the start and have it signed correctly. So I want to get into this whole thing. And this is my favorite saying that I tell everybody. Trusts don't have hands. They just don't. So when I get a DocuSign, which happens more often than you think, signed ABC Trust, that's not a valid signature. Yes, the parties can agree to move forward with it as is. However, what we agree to with reporting to the Department of Real Estate versus what could happen out in litigation in the big bad world and going to all the regular courts that don't live and breathe in our real estate land. Why challenge that? Why go into that? Let's get it signed correctly from the get-go, but do not have things signed in the name of the entity. Same for the power of attorney. You don't want the power of attorney person just signing their name. There's a whole format you have to sign to show because we're trying to use these entities, these encasements. These are ways to protect your client. So they have to be signed a certain way so that it stays on the entity and not as the individual signing. It's the whole reason this is to create a buffer. So we got to take these few extra steps, which really aren't that much, to make sure everything's done correctly and flows through the file. This is my favorite one. So certification of trust. Run into this all the time. There is a document created within the trust that is the certification. It is created specifically for financial reasons. It is created exactly for this, where it's handing over to me. This person's allowed to sign. It's valid right now. I don't find out who gets money. I don't find out who gets the cat. I don't care. I just need to know who's allowed to sign. And the challenge is escrow say, well, we have it. Well, this meets it. Well, yes, it does meet the probate requirements, but does it meet risk management? That's the issue, because the form that is used for escrow is filled out by the individual signing on behalf of the entity. So that could be me saying, I'm Queen Elizabeth. I signed this piece of paper and I'm Queen Elizabeth, and my signature matches my ID, because that's the only thing a notary is going to check. Being a notary, I know this. We don't verify the content of that document. I don't go in and go, are you really the signer? All I do is say, hey, is this really you? And you swear this is correct? They can lie to me. I don't know. I have no way of verifying that. Where the certificate of trust that is in the trust documents that is created by an attorney or someone else, that's a third party who's generating this document. I want that extension. I want somebody else to be telling me, hey, we verified this. This is correct. We already did the rest of the trust. So that's why there's a dance where escrow will say, well, we've got this. But is it enough? Is it protecting you? Is it doing the extra steps? That's something you're going to need to verify with the broker of record of the file you work on, but I do push back and want it from the trust whenever possible, or the original generated documents, for the reason that it is created by a third party. It's not the individual signing on behalf of the entity also saying I have authority. There's just really no way to prove it unless you go back through. And I did have problems. I had somebody say they were the only one required, and then suddenly title double check the trust, and poof, we had an entire file after I pushed back and asked for proof. That escrow company doesn't work with me anymore. I understand. I'm annoying. It happens. We got one document signed. The entire contract was never signed by all sellers. The disclosures were not completed. I don't know. The deal went through. Everybody wanted to keep moving forward, but there was liability, and there still is. And what if that could have been potential fraud? I don't know. But we're putting all these little bits of things for convenience in the moment and having exposure where there's not a need for it, because we have all these documents that exist to solve these problems for us. So, long story to tell you, certification of trust is not a big deal. It's an easy thing. Your client should totally have access to it. It's one page in that trust. It's, again, confirming the trust exists. I don't get the financial details. I don't want to know. It's typically drafted by an estate planning attorney and signed in front of a notary. Escrow's version is also signed in front of a notary. It's got the name of the trust, when it was created, who's allowed, who are the settlers, who are the trustees, who's got power to do what. Is it revocable? Revocable typically means everybody's still alive who created this. Irrevocable, Aunt Sally is dead. And that's when you get a successor trustee. And that's also when you can know, hey, I'm not going to get the same level of disclosures. Where a revocable, especially being here in California with the value of properties, typically that's a financial protection. And that means those sellers owe me all the documents. They may tell you differently, but this gives you a way to push back if you're on the buy side. Usually it'll have an EIN for the tax number. Ask me if I thought about this a lot. This is my glitter soapbox hill I will die on, because I've seen too many problems, and I've, of course, had the problem children, so it sticks with you. Because once you've had something go wrong on a file, you never forget. So this is one of those things that's really important. Power of attorney. I run into this all the time. Nobody knows how to sign. There has to be a very specific signature block on purpose, and it's in probate code. That's what I wrote below. It has to be notarized. That power of attorney can't just be like, I signed it over to you, here you go. Also, be careful when using powers of attorney, especially when we have some of our older clients. A lot of times we'll see people say, well, she has a power of attorney, she can't handle it. Or they have a power of attorney, their signature, they have a hard time writing anymore. Have title verify that. We may need 2 letters from a doctor validating that they were of sound mind at the time when they signed this over, or that there are physical limitations. We always want to make sure we're not doing anything whatsoever that could look at a gray area of doing anything fraudulent, especially with senior financial abuse. That is a thing with the silver tsunami coming. People are pushing things on them. Some of the seniors may feel that they don't understand and they don't want to look stupid. As I tell everybody, I'd make my grandmother sign in triplicate. It's too important, and it definitely is something that needs to be explained and gone through. And powers of attorney are just one of the things that really is a trigger point with those to keep your eyes out on. The power has to be granted by a living person. I've had people slip into comas. I've had people pass away. Suddenly, do we have a trust in place? Do we have probate? Are we doing this? How do we keep the deal going? What's going on? Who's now has signing authority? Who owns? Or do we have to wait the 4 months for probate to let all the creditors know? Where are we at? It needs to explicitly call out that there's a transfer for real property. It can't just be, here's my power of attorney. You can sign my name everywhere. Go crazy. No, I need to know you are letting me specifically transfer this property. It should have a description of the property address, APN number. It might be required to be recorded. It depends on your county. That's why we want to run these past title as soon as possible if you're going to have this happening, because we need to verify what is going to be required for the transfer of deed. And it's got to contain the name of the owner. The person who owns the property needs to be the one giving the power of attorney. Can't be random. Well, it's okay. His brother's cousin, sister, just no. I need it signed correctly. So it would be signed Mary Lou Smith by attorney in fact, Sam Hayes. So it's Mary's signature, and I'm becoming Mary, and I'm saying I'm going to act as Mary. That also means for disclosures. A lot of people try and say power of attorney are exempt from disclosures. That is untrue. This is just somebody signing a response for that person. However, they still have all the disclosure responsibilities, TDS, SPQ, all the things. They were just a traditional seller. The other thing that comes up sometimes is I have seen some power of attorneys for trusts. I have a lot of questions about that, because the whole reason you have the trust is typically that the trustees would or can step in if something's happened to a trustee, successor trustee, that type of thing. That's when you definitely want title to look it over. We definitely may need the doctor's letters for that moment, depending on how the trust is set up. That's going to take some time. So if you've got these issues, let's start conversations with title and escrow a few days, weeks ahead. I'd rather know that, hey, this deal's coming. Let me take some time while it's quiet, instead of we're in the crunch of the countdown during an escrow period where everything's so time sensitive because we're working against the contractual timelines that have been created. And that can cause rushing, causes panic and confusion, and mistakes happen. Let's take that off our plate. Let's make it easier. Let's start earlier by doing this correctly from the start, getting our line of sight, knowing what the heck's going on, and making sure we get all the info. Like I said, glitter soapbox. This is a thing I have been dying on for a long time. It's just too big a deal. What if we got a corporation? I need the articles of corporation. I need a statement of information. I need the corporate resolution. That tells me who's got signing authority. I don't care if you're vice president of in charge of chickens. I don't care. Unless you've got signing authority, you're not signing for any chickens. It's not happening. I need to know they've got authorization to do this, that everybody's aware they're doing the sale. Is the corporation active? Sometimes things aren't always active. And are we missing any resolutions that may have changed signing authority? Definitely want to run all this through title. Definitely want to make sure they've eyeballed it to let you know, and have them tell you the signature block they're requiring on the great deed is the signature block that I want on all the docs. I want it to match across the board. LLC, run into this. A lot of flippers have LLCs. I need the operating agreement, articles of organization. I need the statement of information here in California. And I need to know the manager member authority section. Who's allowed to do what? Title's going to have to tell me who's allowed to sign. Make sure all the signers' names match. I've had that happen before where they have so many LLCs, the one that they were purchasing under, they didn't have signing authority for, so we had to do an OAA, assignment of agreement addendum, to move them over to the correct form. It's a hot mess. And everybody wants to get those deals done. And believe me, I am here for it. I want you out there hustling, because the more files my agents do, the more files I do, and it's a win. But I don't want to take away from the rest of your other deals, because we have a hot mess that 20 minutes, an hour would have sorted for the entire transaction. And it sets you up to be the rock star that you are, so that your clients know what's going on and you know how to handle this. So we've got it taken care of. So yes, I'm adamant about, we really need to make sure this stuff gets done. Probates and probates. So what's the difference? What's going on here? Well, so probate, you can still go to probate with a will, because once you get over a certain dollar amount, things have to go to probate. And with that, the wills will require an executor, because we've got a plan. They might not have a trust, where a trust is better, and then you can have your will with a pour-over trust, and that gets into a whole level of detail to go into. But we're going to get a letter of testamentary from the court, and that says the will exists, and you're going to be the executor of this will. And the court can tell you, depending on what the situation is, what you can prove, what we can document. There may be a court approval required, depending on the price point. There may not. There may be subject to overbid. Suddenly you can be in this deal for 3 weeks, and then you've got a court date, and somebody swoops in and overbids your buyer, shows up with cash, and suddenly, nope, court says you got to go with the higher one. That has happened. Depending on which kind of markets, it can happen again. Letters of administration. There's no will. So this individual would be the administrator. There's going to be a court case. So it's going to be the state of such and such, the state of whoever was the original owner. And then you're going to be signing as executor or administrator, depending on who the individual is and who's executing the orders from the court. The names have to match. I have more stuff where names just don't match, or we're using only a part name. You may need to do an AEA, an addendum amendment to existing agreement, to clarify names. Maybe they signed as Tony and it should have been Anthony. Maybe they forgot their middle initial. We want it to be official to match whatever the docs say. That's our starting point. So that's why we got to get them. Otherwise, we're backtracking and redoing files and redoing documents when there was no need. We could have set it up correctly from the get-go. Do you want a cheat sheet of all this stuff? Feel free to comment signer below, and then you can go ahead and I will send you over an email, or I can do a DM, either one, and we'll send you over. So you've got a cheat sheet to reference all of this. It's a lot to remember, and it's great to have something to reference anytime, but you can always call me with any questions. As I can tell, I love this stuff, and I will talk about it till I'm blue in the face. Next week, we're going to talk about why your comm log is your shield. If I hear one more time, I talk to my clients, but I have no proof. I can only protect my clients, my agent broker clients so much. I need to have written proof. I need to have time, date stamps. We'll go into a whole conversation. When does the day end? Well, I have to do this by 5 o'clock. My day doesn't end then, per the contract. It's 24/7, 365. Southern California real estate, baby. Got to know, when does the day end? When does your time frames end? When can you start demanding things? Then we'll talk about the answer is still no. I don't care how you rephrase it. If it's a red flag, I'm still going to say no. I'm going to tell you no. I will give you any option, and I will tell you go verify with your broker, because I'm not your broker of record. However, I will tell you, from seeing all the risk and all the exposure and all my training, knowing which forms we're supposed to use, knowing what's supposed to happen when, and knowing what we've agreed to contractually. I definitely am keeping an eye on that, but you're always going to be told verify with your broker of record. And then why do you need an NHD ASAP? Have you looked at the RLA and what the requirements are? I don't know why. I've got escrow officers all over California ordering NHDs that really should have been ordered during the listing. And a buyer's agent should probably be asking which one's on file. But that's a whole thing we'll get into, about these little nitty gritty things to save you a lot of time. And I want you to be the rock star that you are. Because if you're in Southern California real estate the way I am, I love it. And so I want to make sure it's done correctly, and you know the tips and tricks to get you through. Any questions, feel free to give me a call anytime, 619-993-7264. Again, my name is Sam Hayes. This was Why with One Stop. Wrong signer, wrong story. Make sure we're getting it done correct from the get-go. As always, verify all with the broker of record from the file you're working on. I am available for trainings. I'm taking on new clients right now for transaction coordinator files, and I'm also available to come talk to you and review your systems, or even look at a troubled file real quick. I can give you a quick eyeball and let you know what's going on, and then we can see if maybe we should start working together so I can make your life easier. Thanks so much for joining, and have a great day.